Welcome to the brilliant Fort Point. Though it today lies in the shadow of the Golden Gate Bridge, Fort Point was once the first thing that greeted visitors entering the San Francisco Bay. This fort has been keeping a watching eye over the strait for more than 100 years. Fort Point is perhaps one of the most underrated tourist attractions in San Francisco, so I'm glad you've made it here. The fort has a long and intriguing history. The story of this site dates all the way back to the mid-18th century, when the San Francisco area was under Spanish flag. In order to secure the region against naval attacks, Spain fortified the strategically located northern point of the San Francisco Peninsula. By the end of the 18th century, they had built the Fort Castillo de San Joaquin, a defense structure which housed around 10 cannons. This fort was later abandoned when Mexico won independence from Spain, and the Mexicans chose to move their army north to Sonoma. A mistake, some might say, as Mexico soon became drawn into a war with the United States. Quickly after the US victory, gold was found in the region, which triggered the Californian gold rush. This caused rapid settlement of the area, and it didn't take long for the United States to recognize its commercial and strategic value. In order to fortify the position, several coastal defenses were planned, one of them at the site of the old ruinous Spanish fort. The Americans had already built a lighthouse on the site, but the gold rush and the need for improved defenses forced it to be demolished. The construction of the fort started in 1853. The first part involved blasting 27-meter-high cliffs down to a mere 4 meter. This was done to allow the fort's cannon to hit enemy ships at the waterline. More than 200 workers, many unemployed miners, worked on the fort for 8 long years, until it stood finished in 1861. The fort was the only one of its kind on the entire West Coast, and was declared a key point to the whole Pacific coast. Due to the outbreak of the American Civil War in the same year as the fort's completion, many people believed it was built for this war specifically. But as you now know, it was in fact built to guard against French and Spanish ships that might be after California's newfound gold. It was only a coincidence that it finished in time for the Civil War. It did, however, serve the Union well during the Civil War as a deterring factor, as no Confederate attack on San Francisco ever took place. After the Civil War, innovations within the field of artillery made large, bulky forts like this one less effective. Due to this, the fort was abandoned and was only used sporadically for military purposes. One time was during the Second World War, when US soldiers were stationed at the fort to guard the minefields and the anti-submarine net that spanned the Golden Gate. When the plans for the Golden Gate Bridge started in the 1930s, some called for the fort's removal. However, the chief engineer clearly stated that the fort would be preserved for its historical significance. Instead of removing it, he redesigned the bridge and incorporated the fort in its construction, which in the end saved it from destruction. I can highly recommend a visit to the fort's interior if you have the possibility of entering it. Inside you can examine an array of historic cannons, see a number of historic exhibits, and discover all about the soldier's life at the fort. If you're lucky, you can even get the chance to test how it is to load a Napoleon 12-pound cannon. Also, if you find your way to a spiral granite staircase, make sure you climb it. It will take you to the barbette level, from which you can get an unparalleled view over the Golden Gate Strait and its magnificent bridge. Today, Fort Point is a U.S. National Historic Site. The fort has been called the Pride of the Pacific, the Gibraltar of the West Coast, and one of the most perfect models of masonry in America. All big words, but nonetheless true. Although Fort Point never saw actual battle, it had great significance due to its more or less flawless architecture and its military history.